Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep the Mining podcast. And today's guest is Graham Clarke, who's the CEO of Emmerson Plc, who are a potash development company focused on the development of their Khemisset Potash Project in Northern Morocco. Graham is a senior executive with over 30 years experience in potash and polyhalite. So he's someone who understands the industry inside out. And I'm interested, and I guess the audience are, to sort of learn more about the potash industry. So I want to welcome Graham on the podcast. So how are you doing, Graham?
I'm good, Rob. Nice to see you.
Yeah, and nice for you to take up your time as well to tell us a little bit more about the potash industry. So first of all, just wondered if you can tell the audience a little bit about yourself, about your background. Obviously, you have a long history and career in the potash industry. So I just wondered if you can just take us through that journey.
Yes, right. So I graduated as a mining engineer quite a long time ago now, back in the 80s. And my first role, I joined Cleveland Potash, which is the only potash mine in the UK, and now one of the few actual mines left in the UK. I joined as a graduate trainee and spent a number of years underground as a miner, doing every job underground, shoveling under conveyor belts, operating the mining equipment, shot firing, then moved on to be a supervisor underground, doing every role, shift manager, and ultimately I was the production manager for the underground mine, and then stepped up as mine manager, and ultimately I spent 7 years as managing director there, running the whole business. But really good training, because I did the job, so I've done every role underground, so really good understanding of that, and had some great times with the guys, because banter with the guys is actually what makes the job the most enjoyable thing. So I moved from Cleveland to join the Sirius Minerals project, and spent 8 years there, and basically I joined, it was a crazy vision of developing a huge mine in the national park up here in North Yorkshire, but played an integral part there in taking that project through to construction. And I left there at the beginning of last year and took a bit of a break before I joined the Emerson project. So good understanding of potash and the operational aspects of that and the market and how that works. And then obviously a great experience developing a project from the very beginning and getting through the planning process, all of the design, early sales and marketing, raising funds, and then actually starting to build it. So
yeah,
been very interesting.
And that's where you are today. So I wondered if you can give us an overview of the potash industry. I meant in terms of what potash is used for, how it's produced, and sort of current market conditions.
Okay, so every plant, no matter where it is in the world, needs 6 macronutrients, so 6 major nutrients to actually get it to grow. That's phosphorus, nitrogen, potassium, sulphur, magnesium, and calcium. So typically the sort of 3 main focus on the 3 main nutrients is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, NPK, using their chemical symbols. And anybody that's growing anything in the greenhouse or the garden, if they buy some fertilizer, it will have nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in it. So potash provides the potassium, and that is mined. It is actually quite a well-controlled sort of market, because there's 8 or 9 really big players that account for the vast majority, probably around 90% of the production. Really big producers are in Canada and Russia. And then there's producers in Spain, Israel from the Dead Sea. So it's there's fairly few big producers that control the market. There's around 80 million tons of potash, either potassium chloride or potassium sulfate, sold every year into the fertilizer market. And typically it's sold to fertilizer producers, who then combine it with the other nutrients, to produce the sort of NPKs, which are applied on every crop, around the world. So that's the market. It's fundamentally, with growing populations, less arable land, agricultural land available in the world, we globally have to produce 60% more food than we're producing today by 2050, just to feed the world's population. And food security is a major issue for a lot of governments, particularly those with really fast increasing populations. So there will always be a need for fertilizer. There'll always be an increasing need for fertilizer, and potash is just one of those nutrients that feeds into the fertilizer production.
Yeah. And how have you seen the industry change since you got into the industry 25 plus years ago? Has the industry changed much? Have you seen much change from back then to now?
No, I think that certainly in terms of potash, there are still the same sort of few major producers who do control the market quite well. They meet the demand, through their supply. It's one of those, it's a commodity, yes, but it doesn't sort of experience the same boom or bust as other commodities, because there's a very steady requirement for the product, and that increases 2 to 3% every year, and it's going to continue to do that. So it's a fairly stable world, the potash world, with the same sort of key players. A lot of the producers are now integrated fertilizer producers, so that's something that has changed. They've absorbed other fertilizer plants around the world, and so they really do. They produce the potash, but they also produce the NPK fertilizers typically.
Okay. Obviously, as I mentioned, you've worked in the potash industry for most of your career, and you're credited with completing the technical and operational elements of the Woodsmith mine for Sirius Minerals development ahead of its construction. With that pedigree, what excited you about Emerson and the Khemisset project?
Well, I took a break out at the beginning of last year, spent a bit of time with the family after too many years of not spending enough time with my family. And I was looking for another role. I think, if you're in mining, if you're a mining engineer, and particularly if you're in the operational aspects of mining, your life is full of challenges, and that's why you do it. Because if you weren't up for a challenge, you wouldn't be able to, stick it out. So I was looking for a new challenge. And I had a conversation with Hayden Locke, who's previous CEO of Emerson, talked about the project, the team, spoke to some of the team, and it was great. It's a new challenge. First potash mine in Africa, where there's a huge opportunity in terms of market, and there's going to be a vastly increasing need for the product in Africa. Different country. I've spent a lot of my career in North Yorkshire, which is great. I'm a Lancastrian, but I've managed to survive in Yorkshire for all of these years, in spite of that. So it was somewhere different, new challenge, a great group of people, and an exciting project, and deliver something. And the stage the project was at, which was, we need to get the funds in place and get cracking with construction, and the opportunity to get a potash mine into operations, was really attracted me, and I've really enjoyed every minute of it since I joined.
Yeah, and obviously you've been in operations for most of your career, and then transferring now to sort of the bit obviously inception of a project. What challenges have you sort of faced, and how's that transition been from obviously day to day putting out fires, challenges to where you are now?
Well, my early career at Cleveland was all about the operations and dealing with the issues as they came along. More recently, with the Sirius project, that was the challenges of planning and dealing with local authorities and all of those aspects. So I've sort of got an experience of both there. And I think the beauty with the Emerson project is it's smaller scale. There's a lot of work being done by the team. The feasibility study was completed last year. So we're in the sort of latter stages of the development bit. So, my recent experience plays very nicely into that. And we've got, with other team members, we've got a very strong team in terms of the fundraising element. And I'm looking forward to getting into the construction and, I'm getting my hands dirty again. And, I suppose that's my more natural habitat. I think that's what you're sort of saying. It's being out there, on the ground and dealing with the issues that you always come across. And that's the enjoyment. That's the fun of it, actually.
Yeah. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in the potash market over the short and medium term.
Well, I think, the fundamentals are there. There's going to be an increasing demand that will continue 2 to 3% a year. And the market is fairly stable always. We're sort of coming out of a lower price cycle at the moment. And that is, as typically is the case, is driven by crop prices. So when you see the prices for soybeans, wheat, corn going up, these are the sort of staple ingredients of everybody's diet. The potash price follows, and that's what it's doing. So all of the forecasters are saying, similar, that the price is going to go up. Certainly to, it's down in the sort of low $200 a ton. It's now edging over 300 again, and will probably be $350 to $400 a ton in the short to medium term, with increasing demand. So we're a 750,000 ton project. So, we're a very, very small portion of the market, and also only a small portion of the, the gradual increase in demand. So, we'll sit very nicely in that.
Yeah. And what's your impression of doing business in Morocco so far?
Well, I haven't managed to spend time out there because of the pandemic we're all dealing with. But really positive. The government in Morocco, very supportive of direct investment in the country. Agriculture is a large part of their economy, so they understand the potash angle. And there are tax breaks once you're in mining, and very low royalty rates. So they're very encouraging in general of development, and particularly in mining. In country, they've obviously got OCP, the world's largest phosphate producer. So they're producing the phosphorus element for fertilizers. So they understand mining, very well. And they've worked very well with us, very supportive. We have a great team in Morocco who do all of the engagement, stakeholder engagement, talking to the authorities locally, regionally, and nationally. And we've got a very good relationship with them. So, from that point of view, really good. But Morocco also has great infrastructure, great roads, power distribution network. It is a really, really great jurisdiction to be looking to build a project.
Yeah. And obviously someone that's a Yorkshireman, I suppose, through and through, and been working there, what are some of the major differences you would say from Yorkshire and obviously working and living in Yorkshire to Morocco? And obviously you said you haven't spent too much time out there, but what are some of the major differences you see from working obviously there in the UK to over there?
Well, I see, obviously there's language barriers, all the rest of it, local customs, but those are really important, that you take note of that aspect. But I think the work ethic from what I've picked up, people work very hard. The team we have in Morocco are great there. We have some superstars out there, to be quite honest. And when we're building a workforce, in my experience, certainly Cleveland Potash, farmers, people from the local area, converted into making great miners. Farmers are very hardworking people. And it's a similar, the area that we're going to build the project is an agricultural area that will be local. The aim is that we use local people, both in the construction and into operations. And I anticipate it'll be very similar to how it is up here in rural North Yorkshire. There's a lot of hardworking people who value having employment, and if there's good employment offered, then they'll really go with it. And they are very supportive of the project on that basis already. So.
Yeah. And what about the mining legislation in Morocco, and how different is that to, say, UK mining legislation?
Well, there are differences. I mean, we found it both in terms of the environmental aspects of the project and the mining law. It is a very well structured country in terms of regulations and legislation. I think probably helped by the French influence over the years. So it's by no means, they've not been left behind. It is pretty strict. We will go over and above whatever the bare minimum is. That's the way we conduct our business. It's the way I've always worked. Regulations, mining regulations, they're the absolute minimum. You go above and beyond that. And in terms of certainly in operating and safety, health and safety, it's about a culture. It's not about following rules. It's about developing the right culture and the right approach. And that is a really important, aspect of everything that we're doing. That's the approach we're going to take.
Yeah. Obviously, this is your first CEO position. What's your experience been over the last 10 months of being in the boardroom, as opposed to obviously being on the mine site, getting your boots dirty?
Well, I've actually spent more time in our dining room at home than in the boardroom, as it happens. which has probably annoyed my wife much more than it's frustrated me being there. But what is different, I think it's been strange times in general because we're all very detached. I have struggled a bit with that because I like the interaction with people. That's my comfort zone. But we've managed okay, and I say there's a good team around. The rest of the board are good, senior team, and it's been okay. I can't wait to get out there and actually get started with the construction, which is a great motivator to actually make sure we get the funding sorted as soon as possible, so that we can actually get down to the construction and then get this mine into operation. And that's what we're all about. That's my motivation, and my drive is to get to that point.
Yeah. And when are you envisaging starting construction?
Well, we've got a target of early construction works the end of this year. I mean, that's pretty aggressive, but that's based on us being able to get the funding in place, and that's really driven by a strategic partner initially, which we're working on, and we've got some very positive conversations ongoing at the moment, and that leads then into getting the debt funding in place, and we've got an advisor working on all of the debt funding structure as well. So we're pulling all of the bits of the jigsaw together, and if we can get that sorted in Q3, then we're doing engineering design work. We're doing some work on site for ground investigation work, so that it feeds into all the detailed design, so that we put ourselves in a position that we can start early works end of the year. And then with a 2-year construction period, sort of end of 23, early 24, we'll be mining some potash.
Okay, look forward to seeing that. Emerson obviously has achieved some key milestones over the last year. What are the next steps? Obviously, you mentioned construction later this year. Is there any other steps in between and after?
Well, first thing, we've got our mining license in February. We've got to get our environmental approvals, and we're working through that at the moment, and that should come fairly soon. And then really it's getting the funding in place. That is the real key to us making the significant progress. But as I said, we raised some money at the end of March, and we're putting that to good use. So we've got, say, some site investigation work. We're going to do some drilling along the decline, the 2 declines that will access the deposit, so that we can de-risk that and do the detailed design. So all of that work's ongoing, and some engineering work. So those are, that's all happening in parallel to getting the money in place, ready for construction, and then we're away. A couple of years and we're into operations.
Yeah. There's obviously been a huge amount of coverage over recent months about we're beginning a new mining super cycle. What do you think investors will look at, obviously further in the sort of copper, iron ore, gold sort of projects? Why would they look at for exposure in potash?
Well, I think it's the long-term stability. It's the other commodities are boom and bust, and yes, you can invest and make some money. You can invest and lose a lot of money. Potash is a very, very safe bet long term. All of the established potash operators, trade at very high multiples, EV/EBITDA multiples, and very consistently. So if you're looking for a good, solid, long-term investment, potash stands out for that reason. And obviously, we're massively undervalued at the moment given our where we are in the development process. And we get into operations, we'll make amazing margins and returns. It really is a good place to be. Potash isn't as glamorous as all of these other things, but one thing for certain is we all need to eat. We'll always need to eat. There will always be a need, an increasing need for potash. So, if people have a look and think it through, maybe not so glamorous, but it is a really sound investment.
Yeah. Your mission at Emerson has been to do the right things in the right way. Do you think the mining industry still suffers from a PR problem?
I think it does to some extent, and with good reason on occasion. But in my career, I've seen a massive change in the mindset. When I worked at Cleveland before, it was owned by Anglo-American initially, and they take a very strict approach to how they go about conducting their business now. And then it was under ICL, Israel Chemicals Limited ownership, who were very strong on the environment and the image of the company and the way that they behave. So I think it has changed a lot. I think mining still gets bad reports, but people should remember that everything in our lives is either grown or mined / extracted. So we wouldn't have cars, phones, none of the stuff that everybody takes for granted. They're luxuries in life. The vast majority of that comes because of mining. So it's actually an essential part of our life. So that doesn't excuse bad behavior in terms of mining companies, but it should make sure people actually understand that it's necessary. We have to do it in the right way, which is, that's our message. We do it in the right way. But, it's essential for us to have everything that we all like and take for granted a lot of the time. So mining is much better than it was, absolutely, and it will continue to get better. There's no question of that. But I think also people should understand how important mining is, and give it a bit more credit at times. That's my personal view. So.
Yeah, I mean, this topic generally comes up with a lot of guests that I interview, and if you look at the UK, mining is an industry that not many people are involved in. And if you mention the word mining, they're curious. Oh, what do you mine? Whereas if you obviously speak about mining in Australia, it's their main industry.
Yeah.
How do you think, say in the UK, how do you think the branding of mining can be better branded within the UK? I mean, do you have any thoughts about how people can be more aware of mining and what actually mining means to everyday life?
Well, I think to some extent, the Sirius Minerals project was sort of, was bringing mining back and raise the profile and doing it in the right way in terms of sustainability. That mine site will be invisible when it's developed. So, you start to, if mining companies are doing things in the right way, then people can come on board with it, and that's been approved inside a national park, and it's so all the rest of it. It's so I think there's a need. It's the messaging of companies involved. They need to get it right, and I think that will change some people's views. There will always be people who will never change their views. And the mining industry didn't do itself any favors, during the demise of the coal industry. And, the way that happened, it was, it takes a while to recover from the sort of bad image that's created with things like that. But I'm a mining guy. I'm also a northerner. I'm very proud of, the UK's industrial heritage. People should remember, we led the way in so many, parts of industry, a lot of it based on mining. That was the success of the UK. It's based on us doing stuff and creating things, and that's what we're good at doing. And mining is part of that. And that's what creates the real wealth. And we produce the best mining engineers globally. That's that was acknowledged. That the mining expertise came from the UK, and there's a lot of companies still very successfully supporting the mining industry. Maybe not in the UK so much, but abroad. A lot of the equipment manufacturers, the skills are still here, and we're still seen as being, the best at doing this sort of stuff. And I don't know how we change people's mindsets, but other than by doing it properly, respecting the environment, respecting people, and maybe that starts to change people's minds.
Yeah. And how do you see the UK's mining industry moving forward? Obviously, there is pockets of things happening, but how do you see sort of a longer term future of the mining industry in the UK? Obviously, various governments around the world are putting all these big plans in place with obviously a green economy, automation. Is there a resurgence in mining in the UK, would you say?
I don't think there will be in any significant way. No, there are going to be pockets, as you say. The smaller operations will be there, and I think it's going to be similar to how it is, and it's not going to feature largely, I don't think, in the UK going forwards. There's still coal that could be mined, but people aren't interested in coal. there's still a need for coal in certain, industries, and it'd be a lot better to produce it in the UK than import it from somewhere else. But it's, again, that's a sort of a personal view. It's, we can get carried away with the sort of, green aspects of things at times without actually thinking the whole picture through. What is the cost to, the planet of transporting coal from somewhere else that isn't produced in a particularly efficient way, when we maybe could produce, what we need for iron and steel industry, here in the UK, because there is still coal available. But that's probably a government-led decision-making process.
Yeah, certainly. And concluding, what's the future and outlook for Emerson, and also what's the future of the potash industry as you see it?
Well, the potash industry is going to continue. Increasing demand, absolutely essential to produce it. There will still be a small number of large producers who dominate that market. But for Emerson, we're strategically located to access the African market. There's a market in Morocco. Morocco are importing potash around the amount that we would produce annually. So it makes complete sense that the project, would actually sell most of the product into the country of Morocco. But that said, we're close to all of the major markets in Western Europe and, the growing markets of Africa. So we just need to get our funding into place, and we're away, and it'll be a very successful business in a great part of the world.
Yes, certainly. Well, I'll certainly be watching you guys on your journey. Really appreciate your time, Graham, for taking the time to obviously tell us a little bit about Emerson. If our audience wants to reach out to you, and if they've got any questions they may want answered, how can they go about doing that? Are you on any social media platform channels?
Well, we have, there's a contact email on the website. I'd rather not give my personal contact details out, but I'm very happy if things are fed through from there, which I get all the time, and I'm very happy to answer any questions people may have. It's a pleasure to do that.
Yeah, no worries. And we'll put your contact detail, not your personal, just your contact details, accompanies podcast anyway. So, like I said, really appreciate time on give us an overview of the potash industry, and obviously Emerson, and what you're looking to achieve. Hope the audience, you enjoy listening to Graham's story around potash, and I suppose it's not a type of commodity or mineral that everyone speaks about on a daily basis, but I'm sure you've taken a lot away from this. So appreciate if you can pass this episode on to other people in the industry. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, appreciate if you can like and share this as well, so more people can have access to this information. So like I said, appreciate your time, Graham, and the audience as well. Appreciate you for listening as well. So until next time, happy mining.